Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC. I am your host, Phil Bakke, and I'm joined by my co-host today. I've got Christian Canales. Christian, what's going on?
Another big dub, man.
Yep.
It's a good time to be a Locos fan.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into it a lot. Obviously, the big win over San Antonio FC last night, but we are also joined by Mikka Burrell. Mikka, how you feeling this morning?
Very, very good. Another big dub, as Christian said, and also 6 straight matches undefeated. So we haven't lost since August 1st.
Yeah.
To Phoenix. So
Yeah, it is a big win, and I think we'll get into kind of the significance of this one in a little bit. We've got a lot to talk about today. The win over San Antonio being the bulk of it, obviously very hard-fought win. Another late winner from the Locos as well. 3 straight in the 80th minute or later. And so, yeah, the heart attack kids are, or cardiac kids maybe, are at it again. But first, we got some housekeeping to take care of. We have some you may have seen, but we've had some scarves for sale and for Seriously Loco. And Mikka, I don't know if you want to talk. You've been pushing these lately, and they've been moving.
Yeah. Want to shout out everyone who's reached out to us to buy one. Of course, Jay from 8th Notch Central Texas. Yours are in the mail, so hopefully you get them soon. Austin Robillard, the Inter Miami fan that we've been on, or you, Phil, have been on his podcast. Mm-hmm. He's gonna get one. Herbert Taylor, who was the honorary conductor at last night's match.
Nice.
Pleasure to meet you, sir, and thank you for supporting us by buying a scarf. And it's getting chilly in the borderlands, so now's the time to grab one. Actually, supplies are dwindling. I'm down to just a handful left. So if you would like a Seriously Loco scarf, just DM us or reach out to me if you know me, and we'll get you set up.
I mean, Christian, you were at the match last night, but it's kind of weird seeing people like rocking Seriously Loco stuff and seeing the pictures posted. How cool is it that people, I guess, connect that much with what we do?
No, yeah, I mean that's what we're here for. It's the whole reason that we do this. It's no fun if we're just kind of talking into the void. So to know that there are people that that are listening to what we have to say and that are gracious enough to to give us their hard-earned money because they support what we're doing, it feels really good seeing that stuff.
Yeah, it's been so cool, and thank you all for supporting the podcast. We've been really enjoying what we've been able to do, and I know Mikka and Christian being able to be there on the sidelines and actually provide some content during the game from up close and personal is always really cool. But the other big project, and Mikka, I guess you'll get in on this too, but me and Mikka just dropped this week a new podcast focused on European football, so that we don't take as much time at the beginning of Seriously Loco episodes, and we can get a little more in depth with that side of things. But it's called Hardcore Football, and it's dropping on all our podcast platforms. How do you think episode 1 went, Mikka?
Yeah, I think it went well. It's like you said, it's our new project. It's not going to take away from Seriously Loco at all. So
No.
If you're not interested in listening to that, that's fine. But yeah, we used to commandeer like half an hour every now and then on Seriously Loco to discuss other things. So we figured let's just put that on the record elsewhere. But yeah, give it a listen, give it a follow. I think we have a Twitter handle as well now, twitter.com/HXC football.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you're interested in the European game or just other levels of football, listen to us there. I know we have a lot of Locos fans who are also Premier League fans, so we'll definitely be talking on Premier League over there. So yeah, probably putting on our plate more than we can handle, but we love the game, so it is, got to do it.
Yeah, and but now that is out of the way, definitely check it out if you can. Hardcore Football, or at HXC Football, as Mikka mentioned. But now that that's out of the way, we've got a big victory to talk about from last night. Dramatic victory, as we said. And I want to start this off first and foremost by listening to what the boss, Mark Lowry had to say in the wake of last night's win.
Yeah, I think we're already confident. We've been in a good run of form. We obviously had a good season last season. We know what we're capable of. But I think there's a psychological thing more than a confidence thing here. San Antonio were unbeaten. They were, rightly so, considered the best team in the USL at the moment. Alan's done a great job. Their coach done a great job with them. They put together a great team. So I think it's a psychological thing. It shows that we're not a team that's just looking to compete with the best. We're a team that's looking to beat the best. And to be the best, you've got to beat the best. And that's what we're trying to do now as a group. I think we've shown over the last 18 months we can compete with anybody. Whereas on our day, we're a very good team. But now it's a case of turning those good performances, those competitive games into wins for us against the better teams. The New Mexicos, the San Antonios, the Phoenixes, the Renos. And, you can reel off the strong teams in the league. And we consider ourselves in that group. We want to elevate ourselves past that group. And to do that, you have to beat those teams. So I think the last 2 weeks, the guys have shown they're capable of doing that. But like I said, if you win these games and lose other games, then it's kind of pointless. So for us, we got to make sure now we take care of business on Wednesday.
That was Mark Lowry immediately post game. And Christian, we'll start with you, but it's something we've talked a lot about in the past, I think, and things that we're kind of used to, turning those good performances against good teams into wins. Do you think that this win against San Antonio maybe has that psychological boost of being able to get over the fact of, so often we're saying, well, we were the better team, or we played really well, but we didn't get the win. Now we did get the win in this game. Do you think it might have that psychological boost against these bigger teams?
I hope so. I have to be, completely honest and say, we played a good game. I think it was probably our best all around performance from, as far as all 11 players on the field go. I think everyone had a decent game, barring a couple of mistakes that we'll get into. But I think it was one of those games where everything went well. But even still, there are still some things that, I would like to see worked on. If we're being honest, we had a goal from a penalty and an own goal, So I think that what really puts us over the hill, in a performance like this, what would really have made me say, this was it, like we're on our way, is if we have an open play goal. That's the only thing that was missing is what I'm trying to say here. So I think that hopefully the players understand that and know that they are there. They just need that last little piece. But psychologically, I think, yes, we're on the right track to getting there. And I think that we'll see one of those performances in the remaining 5 or 6 games that we have.
I think an interesting thing about this, Mikka, is the fact, like Christian said, we get a goal from a penalty. We get a goal from an own goal late, deep in stoppage time. The weird thing about this game is that it doesn't feel like a game that Locomotive win all that often. And I feel like we've been saying that more this season, where they're finding ways to win these games where most of the time it would have petered out into a draw, or, maybe even we are the team that concedes late or gets the bad break. In this case, the break goes our way. And it seems like that's happening a little bit more often. Do you think it's a case of this team being kind of the masters of their own destiny, or do you think we're just going through a more fortunate period?
I think it's probably a little bit of both, although I definitely want to recognize the team for definitely a maturity in terms of mentality, because last season we would see these kind of games where the belief just wasn't there that we could win or that we would get something out of the result or out of those games. This season is very much different. I think it has a lot to do with, number one, continuity. We have a lot of players that are now, stuck into this Mark Lowry side and know each other well. And then we've brought in a lot of pieces that are experienced and that are quality. So yeah, I think the mentality is just different this year. Now, of course, fortune goes our way a little bit on some of these instances. and you do have to wonder how sustainable that is. As Christian said, we get a penalty and an own goal. But with that being said, I think a lot of championship winning sides steal results all the time. And so I think that, we got to think about it in that way as well and see kind of where that takes us. But yeah, the mentality's been incredible. 3 straight matches where, we've gotten late goals where that certainly wasn't going to happen last season. So I think they're good signs. I think, a little bit of fortune, a little bit of psychological edge, I guess you could say.
We came into this one and Mark made a couple of changes in midfield, leaving the rest of the side actually unchanged from that win over New Mexico. So one of the changes that was made was Distel. Zola came in for Chapa, and then Yuma came in for Richie. We've talked a lot about the availability of Distel Zola, the quality of Distel Zola. Not one of his better performances in this one, I think it's safe to say. And Christian, we saw the change, and I feel like maybe the hopes were a little bit higher for a player with the pedigree of a guy like Zola.
Yeah, I think that offensively, he had some good moments. He had some really good, clever touches offensively, but I think defensively, he especially in this game, he just looked completely lost. So I think that's where that's the part of the game that he's missing. I don't know if it's a matter of Mark learning to work around him, or him, just adding that a little bit more to his skill set so that he can play in this system that Mark wants to play. Because, like you said, he has the quality to be a really good player, and it's just a matter of either him finding something that works for him or Mark making changes around him. I don't know. So something's got to give somewhere, and I don't know if it's going to be from him or from Mark.
Yeah. I don't know. Mikka, I think we talked about Distel, and I think the assumption with him was that, he's going to be a player where it's kind of tough to get the ball off of him. And maybe this starts a discussion about how things were going in the first half. Some sharp moments from Locomotive, but overall, like, one of the things that was really letting us down was possession in midfield, and we were giving the ball away like fairly regularly in the first maybe half an hour really the entire first half. We struggled to progress the ball through midfield, and that's kind of why Distel is in there. It seems like, we know that he's a very talented player. So in this one, for us to be giving the ball away as much as we did in midfield, that's pretty disappointing.
Definitely. And it's not something that we expect to see when you've got 3 very capable midfielders in that side. I think we have to give a little bit of credit to San Antonio because they've got incredible athletes, incredible pace in that side. And they were putting themselves about, and they end up fouling us, more than 20 times throughout the match and just putting pressure on us in those midfield areas. Distel, focusing on him more, I think the stats actually are harsh to him. His pass accuracy is only about 67%, but I think that's because he only touched the ball like 18 times.
Right.
On one hand, if you're not seeing the ball that much, you better make sure that you're doing something with it when you do see it. But yeah, it's a little bit shocking that he didn't have more influence on the game. And then, of course, as Christian said, it looked like his assignment was to mark Pirano, and that's a tough task for anyone. Christian Pirano's got so much pace. He was causing problems all match long, really, and he just could not keep up with him. And I think that Distel is. I think we've learned a little bit more about him this season and seeing him make these appearances, and he's more languid than I expected, I guess. Perhaps someone suited to playing a little bit closer to goal than perhaps we thought. But yeah, he struggled a little bit, but the midfield struggled. And I think, when Richie's not in there, we can kind of expect a little bit more or a little bit less control, I guess you could say.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead, Christian. Yeah,
I was going to say I think the other thing too is we're being, it was a rough game for Zola defensively, but because I thought it looked like his assignment was Pirano to me as well, but I also think that it's worth mentioning that Pirano gets 18 touches on the ball. Whether that's a matter of Zola doing something that maybe wasn't as easy to see, just kind of like with the naked eye, or if that's also attributed to, the team defense. I think that's also worth mentioning.
Very true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think one of the things that stands out about this game when you talk about the performance on the whole for Locomotive is that, even with the quality of San Antonio's attackers, and to start, it's Bailani, Pirano, and Solignac up top. And I can't remember, a time when any of them was in a truly dangerous shooting situation across the entire time they were on the field. And then you add Dorenzo and Peruzza into that, who came on later. None of them had the ball in extremely dangerous areas. And so I think ultimately it is a huge compliment to Locomotive that they held this offense to generating only one big chance, which was the penalty. So none from open play. And I think that's a pretty big credit to how Locomotive set up.
Yeah. Shout out to Mishak, by the way. I think he had easily his best game of the season. He and Coleman, I think, are a pretty formidable partnership on their day. And so I think it had a lot to do with that too, honestly. So shout out Mishak. I know we've been kind of digging on him lately, but
this seemed like a game that kind of suited Mishak in a lot of ways because of the way that San Antonio decided to build up. And especially second half, San Antonio kind of sat back a little bit. But I think between Mishak and Brent, they were doing a much better job in this game of cutting the ball out in the air before it was played in behind, not letting it bounce, not let the old cliche adage of don't let the ball bounce. It seemed like they were being more proactive about stopping those counterattacks than in the past, where we've kind of chased the ball a little bit. But yeah, with on the offensive side of the ball for Locomotive, Omar has obviously emerged, I think, over the last few games. He's become more and more influential in what's going on offensively for us. And we spoke in the last episode about how influential he was. Well, clearly in this one, Alan Marcina's I'm no dummy. I'm not going to let Omar beat us again. And we saw, on multiple occasions, San Antonio FC setting up with, you could call it a back three, you can call it a back five, but whichever way you slice it, a fullback and a midfielder were tracking Omar every single time he made a run down the left. And for the amount that they committed to that one player, it didn't feel like we could really get anyone else involved, because in theory there should be space somewhere.
Yeah,
in theory.
Yeah. And that was pointed out to me, and I asked Mikka about it too when we were in the game, and he said, Omar has 2 on him, but he gets down the field, and I don't think it's his fault. I don't think he's holding on to the ball too long personally. I think that there's no one there for him, and I can't figure out why. And I don't know if it's because, he's just outrunning his help, he's getting down the field faster, or or if maybe the team just needs to respond quicker. I don't know if it's that they're not able to get there or that they're not wanting to get there. But yeah, I think, like you say, if he has help, then there's all day for him to toss it in. Even Omar's crosses could find someone when he has 3 people on him.
There's something I've been thinking about, and I'm not sure if this is 100% like the reasoning behind, why he was so isolated out there. But I think it has to do somewhat with the diamond itself. So obviously if it's him and Gomez up top, if he goes down the end line, Gomez is going to go to the penalty spot and wait for a cross, ideally to try to get on the end of something. Mahrez is either going to sit like towards the edge of the area or like make a run near post, maybe. So his help is either coming from midfield, which, in this case, I guess Zola played on that side. But Zola, as we talked about, maybe had like his defensive commitments in mind, and maybe he was a little wary of getting too involved. And I think similarly for Andrew Fox, also playing on that side, because I think he's a really good potential link-up partner. And we saw it a couple of times with Andrew Fox getting forward, but it definitely wasn't like we were all all our players were kind of ending up in the same space. So those players marking Omar are now marking like the whole left side of the field without having to do anything extra. So, something struck me as a little bit odd about the way that we built up. And it didn't seem to be going particularly well, but we persisted. And Omar, obviously hugely physical player and able to take on 2 or 3 USL defenders, because he's got that ability. But it seemed like we might have been able to make some changes. I'm not 100% sure what the solution is, but we might need to find one if other teams were watching last night and looking for a way to try to nullify Omar. Try being the key word.
Yeah, because I don't think that he was taken out of the game necessarily. Like you said, I think he did a good job of handling the defenders. And I think maybe with a different team, because maybe like you said, Zola is just hanging back defensively with a team that doesn't have the kind of threat that San Antonio does, that someone gets more forward. So
and it is worth mentioning, Mikka, as you said, the athletes on San Antonio and the amount of ground that midfielders PC was popping up like all over the place. And the amount of work they did to stifle Locomotive for long periods of the game. I mean, that also has to be credited.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I think too, though, there's Omar. It's very obvious that Omar is very confident in his physical abilities, and by all means he should be, but perhaps he could have recognized that, the late runs are not coming. Let me check back inside, or let me just keep possession. You don't have to take your man on every single time.
Yeah.
Not that we would want that to be coached out of his game necessarily, because more often than not, it's a good thing for Locomotive. But yeah, I think that may have been an opportunity to kind of coach that and recognize, this is a little bit different. I mean, I can't remember the last time we played really 3/5 at the back. So, with 4 at the back, there's obviously more space, but I think, he probably could have just done well to retain possession or pass it inside or, just find someone, maybe even give it back to Foxy behind him, something like that. But I agree with you, Christian, though. I don't think he was necessarily taken out of the game, just doubled up on, tripled sometimes. So long night for him, but yeah.
And I think that I don't necessarily with you 100%, Mikka, and that to me, like I said yesterday, it frustrates me a lot that a lot of the times I kind of get what you're saying with Omar, but a lot of the times what we have the tendency to do is we tend to, when we have the opportunity to counter, we get, halfway down the field, cross the midway point, and then we check back. And that just frustrates the hell out of me. And so I don't know, maybe it's on a case-by-case basis, like maybe specifically in this match, but I don't know that I would want to see that much more, especially out of Omar, who has the ability to at least match these, the defenders with pace going down the field. So, but that's just me.
I think it was pretty specific, I guess, to this match because it just felt like even though there were two people out wide with Omar every single time he was out there, he was still crossing into a sea of San Antonio defenders as well. So like, I think it is kind of specific to this situation just because of the way that Marcinus set up. Like we end up crossing the ball, I think 38 times, which is a lot even for us, where we're built around crosses. But I can't remember one until essentially the own goal that wins it. That looked like a potential. I mean, maybe there was a corner in there that was good, but and it obviously leads to the penalty, which we'll get to in a second. But Gomez in this one played well, I thought overall, but kind of feasting on scraps a little bit. And the couple of scraps he had in the first half, he just, again, kind of snatches at a finish. The one decent chance that he really has facing goal with the ball to his feet, he kind of snatches at it and shanks it wide. We've been kind of looking for one of those to go in, but the wait goes on, unfortunately, Christian.
Yeah, he did have a good game, though, overall, I think. I don't know. I don't know if it has to do with the way we're playing, but it seems like he's playing very wide right now. And I think that he might have trouble creating from that space. We've seen he's more of almost a poacher kind of, getting kind of those last touches inside the box. And I think that to me, it seems like he's been playing very far out on the wing. I think to make space for Dylan in the center, that might be what it is. And so I think that maybe we don't, unfortunately, I say unfortunately just because I'm a fan, but we don't see him kind of being the leader, even though he technically is, I think, our goal leader. Yeah. But I think two of those are penalties. We don't see him go on kind of like the scoring tear that we saw towards the end of last season. But he's scrappy. He's almost like I feel like he has like the hustle, that heart that Chapa does.
Oh my goodness!
And that he's not he gets in there. He's not afraid to get physical with players that are a lot bigger than him. He's not a big guy, but he plays bigger than he is, which I like, and I think that kind of allows him to shine, even though it's not as glorious as scoring a goal every game for 5 games or whatever.
Well, speaking of the physical play, Gomez getting himself into the mix and going up for a header and receiving an elbow in the face for his troubles earns Locomotive the first penalty. Callum Montgomery, the offender for San Antonio FC on that occasion. Mikka, for you, is it a pen? Do you feel that it was correctly given?
I think so. I think, the referee was, right on the edge of the area, perfect view of it. So I'll defer to the ref for that one. I think anytime you make contact with the head, even if it's slight, it's always going to be given. Callum Montgomery is much bigger than Josue, so I think that contact was probably a little bit inevitable. And the ball is well placed. It was going to make it to him. So. Yeah. Definitely denying a chance there. So I'm okay with this one, obviously. And Gomez makes no mistake. Really nice bottom right corner of Cardone's goal. And we're up 1-0 for 30 seconds or so.
It was a really well taken pen, and I think it's worth mentioning because Gomez, I think in the wake of all of our penalty takers from last season departing the club, we were kind of thinking like who is going to be the one from the spot, but Gomez has had 2 really well taken penalties now. And I have to agree, Christian, I'm sure you do too, but the elbow, like I think there's a amount of contact in the box when going up for a header that's maybe allowed. That seemed like it was just over the line.
Oh yeah, and I think it is solely because he gets hit in the head, and it's the referee's job to protect the players on the field there. So I'm okay with that 100. I think it's a penalty. I'm okay with that. If Fox has that kind of contact with, Pirano in the box, you have to protect the players. And so whether it was incidental or not, whether it's because, Montgomery has, 6 inches on Gomez, like, it doesn't matter why it happened. You have to protect the players. And so that has to be a penalty every time.
Yeah, absolutely. But Mikka, as you said, just a few seconds later, it felt like we had barely restarted, and San Antonio go right down the other end, and there's a penalty. Andrew Fox with a pullback by Lonnie, I believe, right on that far post. So is it a pen? And what did you make of Soloniak's Panenka?
Yes, I think it is a penalty. I think it's not as maybe violent, I guess you could say, as Josue's. But he drapes his arm over by Lennox's shoulder, and again, the ref's in good position to see it. Foxy looks perplexed by it, but Christian and I were pretty close to where it happened, and it's a penalty. Unfortunately, he and Coleman kind of, I think, get confused on who's marking who, and that doesn't help. So yeah, penalty. Soloniak with the Panenka. He waited though for Ketterer to dive first, which he does, and we've been struggling for Shithouse 11 players, so we'll talk about that. But well taken, Panenka. I'm always I always just think that those are just going to go horribly wrong sometimes, and sometimes they do. But it was a good one. Yeah, and that's his 7th goal of the season, I think. So,
Christian, your thoughts on that?
Well, I want to say too that I think that it was 100% a penalty. There were some problems with the ref this game, but the penalty calls were not one of them.
Right.
I think they were both good calls. But yeah, the Panenka, as soon as it happened, that was the first words out of my mouth were shithouse. Like, as soon as I saw it. But yeah, it was upsetting to concede so quickly after we score, which is something that I think we've done a couple of times. Something that we have a bad habit of doing. And then the fact that it was so close to the end of the half also just kind of makes it sting that much more.
Right. Yeah. It's like the collision of two cliches, because it's switching off right after you score, like you're most vulnerable right after you score, and then a goal right before halftime. So it was like a commentator's absolute dream, because it's two narratives that you can spin pretty easily. But yeah, I'd agree. Definitely a penalty, and it's just, that's, I think, what's so disappointing about it, because we can't even point to it shouldn't have been given or anything like that, because it absolutely should have. But in terms of in terms of the whole feel of the game, it felt like a Locomotive performance in that we had a decent amount of control. We weren't giving up loads of chances or anything like that. And yet we still went into halftime level, which is just a very common theme, I would say. But what comes next is a little bit off script for Locomotive. So before we get into the second half, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about more of this dramatic win over San Antonio. Thanks to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, official scarf supplier to MLS, USL, US Soccer, and Seriously Loco. We love the scarf design that Roughneck made for us. It's really quality material as well, and you can pick one up, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show. But you can get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. And welcome back to Seriously Loco. So the second half kicks off. It's 1-1 after the canceled out pens for both sides. And we've often seen Locomotive come out for these second halves. I think we spoke about it in the last game against United. Locomotive came out kind of a different team, all this stuff. it didn't have that feel, I don't think necessarily. But it did seem in the second half like Locomotive started to sharpen up a little bit in terms of maintaining some control over the midfield and maybe not giving the ball away so much. I mean, Mikka, did you feel like we maybe started the second half a little bit better than the first?
Yeah, I felt like we were able to impose ourselves a little more, although I feel like control and rhythm was just hard to come by in this match in general for both sides because the play was being stopped like every 2 minutes, rightfully so or not. I mean, we can debate about that all day. I think the refereeing was a little bit interesting on this one, but more control, but still the fouls were still flying in, and it was just hard to build up any rhythm. But I think it was definitely better than the first half.
Yeah, Christian, I mean, you said just before the break that, you didn't have issues with the penalty decisions, but you had issues with the referee. 39 fouls called in this game, and it did seem to break up the play a lot.
Yeah, and it's not even the number of fouls that was strange to me, because I just felt like it was like Bizarro World in that a lot of the times things that should have been blown were not being blown, and then times where he should have let the play go on, he's blowing the whistle. So I think that there was probably going to be the same amount of fouls, but like to me it was like call the right ones. So it was
definitely not. He didn't set a standard. Sorry to cut across you there, but
no, it's okay.
It felt like what are we considering? What's the bar here? Usually a referee is pretty good at setting what they think is foul territory and not. It was very unpredictable.
Yeah, it was strange. And then I think that there was too much. I think that he was trying too hard with like the game management as far as how long he talked to players, who he was talking to, that kind of stuff. I wasn't impressed with that part of the match from the referee.
I always, and our like nemesis referee, whose name is escaping me at the moment. Gosh, why can I not remember? Oh man, the guy from like the first like 3 games of the season.
Yeah.
Whatever his name is, I can't remember. Chris Ruska. Chris Ruska
protecting you from further trauma.
Chris Ruska. So Chris Ruska did the same thing, and this was what was his name? Michael Radchuk. This guy, like, whenever a referee is getting yelled at by a player or is being told, like, what did I do? Something like that. Like, I didn't do anything. And they're not facing them and they snap around and give them like a stare, like mean mug. I'm just like, okay, your head is not in the right place. Cause like to me, and this may be like an oversimplification and maybe body language doesn't mean that much. But to me, if a referee is like in control of things, they're very calm. Like they could be getting surrounded by like 9-10 players and they'll just point. Like they're not going to get mad. They're not going to look like angry or upset about what's going on. They're just going to point like, go away or whatever. Like I'm taking care of whatever. So I caught him a couple of times where players that had maybe committed a couple of fouls and had something to say, like he would snap around and like stare them down and like give them like a, like whatever, like mean mug. And it just strikes me as so odd because it's like, that's not your job is not to like intimidate anyone, impress anyone. Like you're not out there for that. You're out there to make sure that the game is played by the rules. Like that's the whole reason that you're out there. And whenever a referee does that, it almost always exacerbates the issues. Like it almost always gets worse when the referee sees himself as part of like these disagreements or whatever, when he should be a, fully kind of neutral bystander. So that was my take on the referee. I thought that he just became too involved in the occasion itself, where more often than not, as we often say cliche, it's a cliche or whatever, but the less you see the referee, the better. You almost don't notice he's there. That's the sort of officiating we'd like to see. Not not what happened in this one. He loved being kind of the center of attention, it seemed. Luckily, he didn't have any more big decisions to make, and he does get the two big ones correct. Really, I mean, we can talk about a couple of bookings maybe later, but that breaking up of play, I mean, this second half, it was so broken up that thinking back, like Locomotive's big chances are all coming from set pieces, and there's not really a big chance from open play that I can even think of like throughout.
No, not for us, and not for San Antonio either. I feel like the game very much was played in the wide areas and just outside the area. Neither team really could find those key passes into the box, and that leads to us taking a lot of hopeful shots from outside, and I don't really remember any like clear cut chances really, and it's so weird to that sentence you just said, feel like most of our chances were coming from set pieces, like. Yeah. When it's definitely an about face from last season.
Yeah, Christian, I mean, with that broken up play, like the two shots that are really memorable come from Yuma, of all people, from outside the area. When he's pulling up, like, did you kind of get the feeling that like, yeah, we're not going to score today?
Well, they were I don't know. The way things were going, I think that we weren't creating a lot of chances, but I think that we were creating a lot of pressure.
Sure.
So, it's one of those things where, if you do that enough, then something's going to happen. So, like, why not? It's 2020. Like, why not let Yuma score?
Stranger Things.
Bullet from outside the box. Yeah, exactly. So they were 100% speculative, but I think that we've seen other people take similar shots and get close. So
I will say that Yuma's second is really well struck. Like, it's not. I don't think it's ever a threat to go in because of the angle that it comes from and everything, but he hits it sweetly. So he definitely has the ability to strike from outside the box, which I guess the classy Spanish midfielder, should have that attribute, I guess. But it's interesting what you brought up, Christian, like the pressure building. And I think this is a theme that we've seen a little bit in these last three late wins. Is it's not so much that Locomotive are piling on like big chance after big chance, but I mean, Mikka, in this one, as Christian said, like, the pressure keeps building, and if you pressure these USL defenses enough, like, eventually they're gonna crack.
Absolutely. It's, I was doing the live tweeting last night, and I kept thinking to myself, all right, well, let me draft up the tweet for when we inevitably just drop back and try to hang on, and that never happened. Mm-hmm. So that might still be in the drafts. I don't know, Phil, you might have checked that out, but we never sat off. We never were content with the result, which I like, honestly. I mean, go for it, and we did. And you're right. It's not our goal at the end of the day, but we do cause it, and so yeah, the pressure definitely was mounting, and I think it's a very apt ending of, those final minutes and what led to the own goal. So
the own goal itself, and there's a lot surrounding this, but a moment of poetic justice that is straight out of like Dante himself. This moment of Mitchell Tainter is tracking the run of Omar Salgado, who towards the end of the game was finding a lot more joy. And I don't know if it was the substitutions that maybe led to a breakdown of the shape, or maybe San Antonio pushing a little bit more to try to break and try to find that winner. But Omar gets into some space late in stoppage time, and Tainter is beaten all ends up. So he just absolutely wipes out Omar. So my first question is, do you think that Tainter's challenge in and of itself should have been a red?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, he's off.
Yeah.
He's off. I mean, and there's no call. It's a lazy challenge, an exhausted one. Tainter was getting, done the entire match, like many a fullback have experienced at the hands of Omar Salgado, or at the feet rather.
Well, afterwards, he got the hands of Omar Salgado.
Are you saying he caught hands?
Omar stiff-armed the shit out of him at the end there.
Oh, that's right. Right. He did. Well, maybe then those two cancel each other out. But yeah, shocking challenge.
Yeah, Christian, I mean, you said 100%. It's like the key in this challenge is the fact that Tainter gets nowhere near the ball and isn't attempting to play the ball.
No, yeah. I mean, you see, eyes are not on the ball the entire time. Like he is going through Omar. So yeah, that's one of those things where I was talking about where it's the referee makes a call, but make the right call. Right. That's a red. It's not debatable.
The crazy thing being that I think often the term thrown around world football is ball don't lie or the ball doesn't lie. And in this case, the ball did not, because Dylan Mahrez delivers in a really good cross. And credit to Dylan, because it's not always easy having run for 94 minutes to find it in you to deliver in a quality ball. But in this case, he puts it right onto the head of Mitchell Tainter, who puts through his own goal. He was left on the field by the soccer gods to put through his own net and win the game for Locomotive. One of the things that struck me, and I want to get your guys' reaction because you were there in the stadium, but it has to be one of the funniest post-goal celebrations that I've ever seen from Locomotive, because they all ran around confused of who to go to celebrate with. And it was a weird amount of time before anyone made a decision. So they just kind of ran around excitedly in their own circle for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then all met up and celebrated. But talk about that moment, that late winner, another late winner, and in front of the nearly 1,600 fans in the swap too.
Yeah, Mars hit him right in the tainer. Oh man, no, it's it is poetic justice indeed, because he should have been off the pitch at that point. But the soccer gods know best. At the death, I can't think of a later goal that we've had this season, or maybe ever. I don't know. Just pandemonium at the swap. Professionalism for us went out the window. I think we were confused too about how to celebrate. So, very, very good result. Very good moment. And it's again 3 straight late goals. What is this team?
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome to see. It's awesome to know that you need to watch this Locomotive team to the end, because we're not going to just settle. Settle for these results, and no more invincible season for San Antonio, unfortunately for them.
Well, Mikka's asking, what is this team? And to me, it seems like this is the team that everyone wants to play for. Because, New Mexico's players are scoring goals for us. San Antonio's scoring goals for us. Everyone wants to get in on this Locomotive action. So, I think it'll do better for their careers if they sign a contract with us first. But because I just think that it's we have 2 late goals, but both own goals 2 in a row. It's just one of those things that's just different from last season.
The win puts us back 2 points behind New Mexico United in Group C, and now firmly in control of our destiny in terms of where we end this return to play in the group. The next matchup against New Mexico United now looms large, but we will have the small task of getting past Colorado Springs this Wednesday, which we'll get to in a little bit. We've had a lot of problems the last few weeks, and really this whole return to play, of finding players for the Shithouse 11 who really truly deserve it and embody what it means to be in the Shithouse 11. I mean, Omar is already in there. Drew Becky is in there now for his yellow card, but we have only a handful of opposing players. Tonight, it feels like we could make like 3 or 4 additions from San Antonio.
Yeah, I mean, I personally need to see Solignac leading the line for the Shithouse 11 and for that Panenka, and then, of course, Tainer at the back. He earns it. He definitely earns it for still being on the pitch after a pretty easy red card and then scoring for us. So I put both of them in there easily.
Christian, what's your vibe for shithouses in this one?
I'm with you. I was going to say both Solignac and Tainter. I think it's pretty clear cut for this game.
So I've got one other nomination that I'm going to float out there, and we didn't speak about him in the analysis of the actual game because his impact is odd when he comes on. But he was spoken about a lot in commentary, and rightly so. So Peruzza, 19-year-old, making his way up into the professional ranks, and this kid comes on, is booked in one of his first involvements in the game for a challenge down the right-hand side, then has a coming together where he's called for the foul, but because he's called for the foul and he was trying to buy a foul, he rolls around on the ground pretending like his nose is bleeding for, it felt like an eternity, but it might have been like 2 full minutes, where he went down. He thought he had gotten the foul, but the foul actually went against him. So then he realizes that the foul's been called against him and he's on a yellow. So he starts writhing on the ground, holding his nose and actually pulling his jersey up to his nose to stem the bleeding. But every time he pulled away, there was no blood. And it was just like, what is happening? Why is this being allowed to occur? We all know that he's not bleeding. It's not like a broken nose or anything like that. He's fine. And then he commits a foul not that long later, maybe in the 85th, somewhere in there. Foxy's going past him completely. He brings him down cynically. Professional foul. Arguably, Peruzza should have been sent off for that. I think it was a second yellow, in my personal opinion. So for the fact that he comes into the game, he didn't even play the full match, and he stuffed enough shithousery into 30 minutes to fill almost, a few games worth. Peruzza is my one shout, but I 100% agree with you guys that I think Solignac and Tainter were the, primary antagonists on the day.
Yeah, no, that was, you're right. Yeah, I remember everything that you're talking about. It was just one of those things where I think without the context from the commentary and, from what we're saying, not exactly 100% able to see what happened. You don't get the full level of shithousery, I think. Cause when it I remember when it happened and I was like, that guy is writhing around on the floor, but I'm pretty sure the ref said the penalty or the foul was in our favor. So What is going on years. So yeah, with a little more context, yeah, you're right. That's a good shout too.
And I think that is maybe it was a shithouse performance that primarily came across on TV, where in the stadium it's a little tougher to grasp that. It's not as overt as something like a Panenka, which is just a big middle finger to the keeper and the fans.
And then he fucking blew a kiss to the fans too. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yep. Yes, he did.
Notch won't forget.
No, they won't. God forbid we face San Antonio in the playoffs, because Soloniak's going to get an earful from Eighth Notch. I think it's safe to say.
We'd probably be in San Antonio, unfortunately.
Oh, true. Unless things go real south for them real quick. Or alternatively, if we actually get past, we could set up, hopefully we see San Antonio later in the playoffs if we can overtake United and get into that top spot and not have to face San Antonio in the first round. That would be a nice change.
Yeah, I wonder how, this is off topic, going off on a tangent, but I wonder how the home and away decision is going to be made when you get into playoffs. If it's just going to go based on points, or like how that works. Yeah. I don't think I've read anything about that.
No, I don't know if the playoff format's even like 100% set in stone. Like, I think they have the draw criteria kind of like available, but I'm sure it would just be based on points, or maybe just like your record, like the team with the better record. Or if it's a seeding thing, like if you're top of the group, then facing second place, then you're at home.
Yeah.
So, but then has less like COVID exposure.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting pragmatic with our seating. So we have our Shithouse 11 editions. I'm going to stick with Soloniak and Tainter, and Peruzza will have maybe another opportunity in the playoffs to get into the team. If he keeps it up at this rate, he's at a XSH of 1.0. So he'll be, maybe his expected shithousery will take him to new heights. To finish on a positive, though, before we get into the preview of Colorado Springs, the game changer for this one, for Locomotive, I think it's a little less clear cut than it has been in the past. We've had like kind of impact goal scorers. We've had, last week, I think, we saw Omar kind of take over the game down the left, and it obviously has an impact in this game, but the game changer itself, little bit different in a performance like this one, where it's not so obvious who kind of took over. Christian, I'm interested for your thoughts on who changed the game for Locomotive.
So for me, and I think that this might really be a shock, just especially for you, just based on what kind of the wording that you used in the outline for the episode. But for me, I was very, very impressed with Yuma. Mm-hmm. I think that he played very well back there, just from a quantitative standpoint. Just looking at like FOP mob ratings, however much stock you put into those, he had the best rating of our defensive midfield season. I thought that, especially for this matchup, it was a really good choice. I think that Richie is better at, calming things down and maybe kind of reading things a little bit more, kind of like what we were saying about Chapa last episode. Mm-hmm. I think this game required a little more reaction, a little more aggressiveness, and I think Yuma did a really good job of that. He had a lot of really solid tackles that were, especially when you have someone attacking from the midfield like Pirano, someone as quick as that. I think that he's just that little bit more athletic and mobile than Richie, and I think that really suited this game plan, and so that he was the game changer for us. I think that he did a lot of work defensively to shut that San Antonio attack down.
Yeah, I think Yuma's a great shot, and my wording in the outline, I said thought he was okay. I think I was being a little bit harsh based on one moment that stuck in my mind where he played the ball. He tried to play a square ball out to the right-hand side, like maybe inside the first 10 minutes, and it went like 20 yards wide of his intended target. And I was just like, oh God, like, is it going to be one of those games? But Yuma was like very solid in there, I thought. And for all the talk of the midfield, it was a pretty good performance. Mikka, your thoughts on the game changer?
Yeah, actually, I like the Yuma shout. And something, too, that I just want to say on Yuma is I feel like he takes the captain's armband very seriously. And I think he relishes it because we know he likes to speak with the referee. And now he's got this armband that says he can do exactly that.
Right.
So I like Yuma's captain sometimes. I think I'll go with like a footballing choice, I guess, for game changer. I think Dylan Mahrez had another good game. Created the most chances in the match, above the 80th percentile in passes completed. The engine on this kid is incredible. I mean, for him to create that chance for the winner that late on, it was really great to see. And Dylan just has another good game. The amount of minutes he's getting, we worry about it, but I guess it's not affecting him in any negative way. So just hope he can stay fit and keep leading our attack.
I've got to give a shout, and this is kind of to bring things back from what we said about the midfield and the way that they were a little bit sloppy, especially early on in this one. But I do have to give a shout to Brian Rebillon. I don't know that he was the game changer by any stretch of the imagination, but his presence in midfield, he added a lot of quality. I think some of his touches, he's a very audacious player, and I think we know this. He's got that little swag about him, but he actually sombreroed a player earlier today, or in this game early on, where he just flicks it over, like flicks it over him on the turn. And I'm just like, who is this man? Like in midfield, like he thinks he's Neymar. But his touches in midfield were the best of the bunch, I think. And he actually in this one takes part in 13 duels and wins 11 of them, which is crazy. So I think against a team of athletes like San Antonio, if you look for the reason why they never looked like that fluid or why they were kind of kept on the back foot, I think Brian plays a pretty big part in that. And we saw a much better return in his past success. I think he will want it a little bit better, but 77% is a big improvement over his last two outings. So maybe he's growing into that role. So I don't know that he's 100% the game changer, but I did want to give Brian a little bit of credit, given that we did, kind of slag off the midfield slightly. So I just wanted to give credit where it's due. But I thought both fullbacks were also good. It's a tough one to really nail down because it's a good team performance. And ultimately, the winner was scored by a member of the opposition. So that's, I guess, the weirdness around picking any one person to be it. But I like both of your choices in Yuma and Dylan. Now we look ahead to Colorado Springs, and we will take just a short break, and then we'll be back to preview that match and wrap things up here at Seriously Loco. Stay tuned. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Icarus FC. Icarus FC is a kit supplier of unique, bespoke uniforms, kits for all kinds of levels of teams, but they do amazing work. They've done some awesome concept kits that are available for sale on their website. They've done some amazing kits for lower league teams in the U.S. And if you're tired of the same old uniforms and cookie cutter templates that we always complain about from Nike and Adidas, and you're looking for a unique, completely custom kit for your youth club, Sunday league squad, adult, or even pro team, then Icarus FC can help you create the kit of your dreams at an affordable price. Let them help you design your new custom kit today at IcarusFC.com. And welcome back to Seriously Loco. We've got a big week this week in that we have two more matches to go, three games in 7 days. The first of which comes this Wednesday at Southwest University Park against Colorado Springs. Christian, Colorado Springs coming off a bad loss to Real Monarchs 4-1. They were downed by the reigning champions who have looked a shadow of their former selves. But Colorado Springs also had drawn their previous 4 matches before that and haven't won since March. This is a team looking kind of short on confidence. How do you feel going into this one against Switchbacks?
We have to feel a little bit cautious still, I think. I think it's important. One of the things that Mark said is that you have to like you're the best team, but not know you're the best team. In that you have to be confident, but you still have to put in the work. And I think that that's going to be important. Obviously, last time we played Colorado, they held us scoreless. It was a scoreless draw. That was in Colorado. When we were here, we beat them 4-2, but still, it shows that for whatever reason, they can hold us to no goals. So I think that keeping the same kind of mentality that we've had, especially over these last 2 matches, we're undefeated over the last 6, I think now, but we've won 2 in a row. And I think that we've been very aggressive these last 2 matches. I think staying aggressive is going to be important, but I think that they have to be aware of what Colorado can do. Like we were talking about before when they played bold, they got down 4-0 at halftime and then came back to get a point with a 4-4 draw. So they have the ability to turn it on when they need to. And that just means that we can't fall asleep for all 90 minutes.
Yeah, Mikka, I mean, they've conceded 4 goals in 3 games this season, but they've obviously, like Christian said, Austin gave up a 4-goal lead against them. So they have this weird kind of thing where they've shown they can score goals, but they don't seem to do it at the right moments. How much of that is down to confidence, and can Locomotive ride their confidence into this game? Do you think they can carry that through and make it count against a team that seems a little short of it at the moment?
Yeah, our fortunes couldn't be more different at the moment in terms of, Colorado not having picked up a dub since March, since opening night, and us flying right now. This is not the time to get complacent. We've definitely claimed some big scalps recently, but Colorado can hang with those teams too. Maybe not get a win, but I mean, they drew New Mexico just recently. They drew us. So yeah, not the time to get complacent. Not the time to, I think, rotate the team too much. Actually, I think we should go with what works. But, Colorado Springs is a weird team because I was having just a peek at their stats, and they've outpossessed their opposition in the past 3 games and still have not been able to come away with a win. It's a weird one. They're a weird one. I don't really know.
We know all about that though. Like that was our season last year. So
sure.
We know very much how that can happen.
That's very true. Yeah. I want to say this should be, as close to a regulation win for Locos as could be, but we'll see. Hard to discuss Colorado Springs. They're just a weird bunch.
The way that they got that draw against us in Colorado Springs, we had spoken about how they tried to stop us out wide. The first game, they frustrated us through the middle. In the second game, really packed the midfield and tried to frustrate us there. Do you think, given how we've played, do you think Colorado Springs is more likely to try to stifle out wide, similar to the way that San Antonio did? Do you think they tried to kind of mirror something like that? Because we have seen them line up in back 5s or back 3, however you want to call it. We've seen them line up like that. Do you think they go back to that? Or do you think they stick to what worked in Colorado Springs and try to frustrate us, playing through the midfield?
That's a tough one. Well, we were at home for this one, I believe.
Yeah.
So I don't know that they necessarily want to get into a track meet with us and allow us the spaces out wide, where, we play that out ball to Omar Salgado a lot. And so I might lean towards them wanting to shut down the flanks, and not try to get into that kind of a duel with Locomotive. But I mean, it remains to be seen. Obviously, I think that this is the big ask for them coming off, a battering by Real Monarchs, who they themselves have no business battering anyone, honestly. But that's got to be demoralizing. They'll be wanting to come out here and do something. So, yeah, I think maybe they try to shut us down wide and just keep the game narrow.
The interesting thing about what you said, Mikka, and Christian, maybe you can speak about this a little bit. Just obviously confidence is going to be damaged when you're beat 4-1, especially by a team that in theory in this group is kind of the team that they should be looking to try to get some like consolation points off of, in some ways. But in another way, is Colorado Springs actually going to benefit from the fact that they only have 3 days and they don't have to dwell on that loss that much? They can just get straight back out there and try to put things right. Even though it is against, obviously, I think Locomotive have shown that they're a much better team than Monarchs these days. But do you think Colorado Springs almost relishes the chance to just get back out there and try to put in a better showing than the 4-1?
Yeah, who knows? With the way, just with the structure of this season, it's hard to tell what anyone thinks of this. Like, I have no idea if they've already packed it in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really hard to predict, I guess, what their mentality is going to be. Which is, I think that for Locomotive, it's just so important to come into this game like you're playing Phoenix, like you're playing New Mexico, you're playing San Antonio, just because Colorado Springs has nothing to lose at this point. So, why not go out and try and get score 5 goals and a half? Like, what's stopping them? So I think that I assume that they're going to come out, just like you said, since it's so close to their last game. I think that they're able to I think that they'll probably be happy to just get that one off of their minds.
For you guys, and Mikka, I'll start with you. Is there any change that you would make for Locomotive? I know you talked about not rotating too much, but is there anyone that didn't start this last match that you're looking to maybe come into the side and make a difference in this one?
Yeah, I think if we're just going based on merit and on performance, I think Distelzola probably needs to start on the bench for this one. I'd like to see Chapa Herrera perhaps get a start. It's a good game for him because he can graft, and do what he likes to do. I don't know that I take anyone else out though. I liked Yuma, kind of in that deep lying playmaker role. The defense is solid. I think we persist with Brime in midfield. So yeah, that might be my only change. I wish Nick Ross was available. We did confirm that his knee surgery has been completed successfully, so he's got a spell on the sidelines for us. I don't know that we see him again this season, but yeah, I think I'd like Chapa to come in.
Christian, for you, I mean, is there anyone? I know that you've got some soft spots for some people on the bench via your Bravos fandom, but is there anyone that you would like to see start this one who didn't start the last match?
Yeah, as far as anyone that I would like to, just as a personal preference, I don't think so. I I think Meek is right. I think that we will see Chapa in there instead of Zola. And I think that just for the sake of rotation and for managing minutes, I think that Richie might start this one instead of Yuma. Especially 'cause, like I had alluded to before, I don't think that Colorado Springs is the big athletic side that San Antonio is. So I think that just for the sake of getting Richie minutes, he didn't play at all this last match, and I think it's important to, to have him in there. Mm-hmm. I think that he start, even if he plays, 55, 60. I think that it's important that he gets his minutes there. So that's my prediction. I think that we'll see Chapa and Richie.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm thinking along similar lines. I'm pretty confident. The only other shout. Well, let me organize my thoughts slightly. So Richie, I think Mark has been very intentional in the way. Obviously, I'm sure he's very thoughtful about how he's employing players. But I think it works out extremely well that we have San Antonio and then Colorado Springs, because I think it gives Mark the luxury of playing Yuma in a game that maybe has a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more like of that hard-nosed sort of, I mean, the shithousery, honestly, like he thrives in that kind of environment, and he did play well. Whereas I think Richie is absolutely the 6 that should play against a team like Colorado Springs, because I think we have the opportunity to, like, for those balls around the corner and breaking lines like that Richie does, kind of naturally from his, from that deep lying spot. Like, I think it gives us a very good chance of breaking Colorado Springs down a little bit easier, because as soon as we recover possession, he always plays like very progressive passes. And it didn't work out exactly as planned. I think his last start, he didn't have the best time out there, but I think Colorado Springs gives him a little opportunity to get back to what he does best, in springing those attacking players. And I think someone like Dylan could really benefit from that.
See what you did there.
Yeah. Spring. And then the only other shout is that I think, as we have in each of the matches against Colorado Springs, I would not be shocked if we see Saeed Robinson to start. Also because Omar is a player that's been keyed on by a lot of these teams. We've seen a change in game plan. And if they spend the next couple of days training for Omar and he's not out there, that's a good, like, we've wasted some of their time, I guess, like in some ways, some of their game planning.
Waste their time 2020.
Yeah. So, so Saeed, I think he'll probably start this one. And I actually kind of like the idea because it just varies how we do things a little bit. Cause he obviously offers something very different than what Omar does. And I'd like to see him, get involved. But one of the conversations that I think we've kind of been like skirting around for a little bit, but no one has directly addressed, is Chiro and Toko. And after the win against New Mexico United, Distel Zolo posted a video on his Twitter about of the whole team like FaceTiming Chiro, who was announced as out for that match and he was injured. But they FaceTimed him. He clearly wasn't at the game, which we've seen plenty of times injured players like attend the match just in normal clothes or whatever, and watch with their families or whatever. And then tonight or last night, Locomotive came out in their warm-ups, and all of their warm-ups had the number 3 on the back of their jerseys. To me, those two behaviors in and of themselves belie a very serious injury, and one in which Chiro might not play again this season. Did you guys get any scoops? Were you able to like find out what was going on, or do you have any thoughts about the status of Chiro? Because it seems, based on the reactions and actions of the players, it seems pretty bad.
Yeah, I think that when the players are warming up, I pointed out to Mikka, I was like, why do they have number 3 on their uniforms? It didn't even occur to us. So I think that, when we had the chances to talk to some people at the beginning of the game, I don't even think it occurred to us to ask the question.
Right.
But yeah, it's super strange. You have to think, obviously Mishak is not the captain of the team, but like he straight up like broke his leg last year, and there was not these same like symbolic gestures from the team for him.
Right.
So yeah, you have to imagine it's pretty serious, and also upsetting because Mark said the press conference that it was a training injury. Like it's kind of upsetting when you think that these kind of serious things happen in training. That just makes it hurt that much more. So who knows? But I think you're right. I think this is a case where we don't have him for the rest of the season.
How big of a blow is that, Mikka?
It's a big one. I mean, Chiro is the heartbeat of this team, I would say, just based on the obvious respect that the locker room holds him in, and he's a fan favorite. I feel like one of Pavlov's dogs every time I hear the name Chiro and Toko, because I immediately say he's very loco. But yeah, no, neither Christian or I made the connection with the threes. I was like, wait a minute, are we like taking on Chelsea's terrible shirt sponsor as well? Like, what's going on here? But I mean, you got to think it's something serious. I don't know, like an ACL or something. I mean, it's pretty worrying. Coleman's done great. Yeah. Obviously, Mishak had a good outing. But I mean, if one of them need to be sat, then what? I mean, Drew Becky, yikes. Matt Boehner, like,
don't forget about Boehner.
Is he even on payroll? Like, I'm, I don't know. So yeah, I hope that Chiro gets well soon, obviously, and I'll try and we'll have to. Sirius Local will have to do some investigating and see what's going on there. But yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah. And shout out to the production team down at El Paso Locomotive, I guess, or at ESPN, between Duke and the whole crew down there. They were the ones who pointed it out. So I wouldn't have noticed it at all, because they don't turn the cameras on during warm-ups on ESPN Plus. They don't boot the thing up. They don't start the stream ahead of time. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what news comes of Chiro. But the last bit of business we have is our score prediction update. And Christian, for once, Austin, he cannot join us today, but Austin was wrong. He was about a minute and a half from being correct. But in this case, Austin has actually not accurately predicted the score. Where do we stand with our score predictions? And then we'll get into our predictions for Colorado.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Austin had predicted a 1-1 draw with a Gomez goal. And so, yeah, if not for Tainter, he would have been exactly right. So Austin comes away with 1 point for the naming the goal scorer correct. I predicted a 1-1 draw with Omar scoring, so I got no points, unfortunately, so I'm still stuck at the bottom. You were able to break the deadlock now, Phil, so you have 8 points. You predicted a 3-2 win with a Mara's goal, so predicting the win gets you a point. Mikka also stays at 11 points. She predicted a 2-2 draw with Omar scoring, so no points for Mikka or myself this week. So Austin's still miles ahead in first place with 18, Mikka in second with 11, Phil within striking distance with 8, and I'm stuck at 7.
I'm inching. That's the only way that can be described, just by predicting the win. It's been a solid prediction in recent weeks, although keeping the score nice and close has also been a solid prediction with all these late goals. So Christian, I think by virtue of the standings, I believe you get first pick in this week's score prediction.
Okay. I try being practical and it doesn't work out, so I'm gonna go kind of wild. I thought 1-1 with Omar was a solid pick last week, but I come away with 0 points. So it's time to get a little crazy. So I'm gonna head and predict a 3-0 win, and I'm really gonna go off the rails and say that Carijo opens his account this weekend.
Ooh.
The loco puns coming thick and fast.
Off the rails. Oh, man. Well, does that bring it to me?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Oh, man. So I like... Oh, man. So I do think we keep a clean sheet. Because I think we've been kind of crying out for one in recent weeks. So I'm gonna go. Let's go. You know what? I'm gonna copy you. I'm gonna go 3-0 as well. But I will go for yeah, Gomez is a smart money, so I think Gomez scores again. It's just the way. That's just the way that it's been going these days. A lot of the chances are falling to him, I think, and we've been waiting for him to put some more away from open play. So I think that's what we see. Mikka, you're up next.
Okay, I am going to go 2-0 Locomotive. Agree, Phil. I think we are wanting a clean sheet here. I say that Brian Rebellon finds himself in the area and poaches a goal for us.
Does he also receive a concussion at the end of it? Or
most likely. Most definitely. Yeah, I think he finds himself either on the edge of the area or on the end of a corner and puts one in.
He actually had a decent chance in this match, a header.
A really good header.
Yeah. And he just misguided it slightly. So, yeah, not a bad shot. He did find himself in and around the area quite a bit, and against Colorado Springs, maybe he'll take advantage. Austin, aka Ostradamus, as he's been named by the Loco faithful, he is going for a 2-0 win as well for Locomotive, and he says Omar Salgado scores. So a couple, I think, tried and true choices from me and Austin in terms of goal scorers, and then Mikka and Christian going a little bit more left field, which is a baseball field pun. And just to keep it on brand. But there you have it. I think it's safe to say that everyone around Locomotive with these late wins is feeling confident going into a game against a team that's not feeling as confident. But you see it all the time, those tricky midweek games that maybe a team gets caught looking past if the mentality's not right. So I'm sure Mark will have the lads focused on this one and be imparting just how important it is to keep the momentum going, because, I mean, guys, at this point, a loss to Colorado Springs, or even any drop points to Colorado Springs, is just re-inviting New Mexico United to walk away with that top spot.
Yeah, true. By the way, are we to assume that there's no COVID issues now with Colorado Springs? Because last time was a little, I mean, they had a covered person, right? Test positive. So
yeah. And the game was
and it's
postponed.
all good now.
I mean, as good as it's going to get, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, very important match on Wednesday, and we'll be watching. Are you guys planning on attending that one? I know it's tough because it's the middle of the week, but and we all have day jobs.
I think I'm going to try. Yeah, I'm going to try. I think
Like,
kickoff is slightly earlier, so that helps a little bit, but I'm going to try.
You making moves, Christian?
Yeah. I think I'll probably be out there.
Oh, my bad. Well, I'm hoping you guys can make it because obviously I enjoyed, even from the inside, I enjoyed your guys, insight into what was going on because, not being able to be there, it's nice to have that feeling. And Christian, last night you got the Instagram kind of like back going again. Always nice to have that like on field content with the Instagram. So yeah, in addition to our Twitter, which is going to have during the match, it's going to have, minute by minute updates of whether it's, Abuelita hot chocolate breaks, in the cool El Paso night. Or if it's Yuma yeeting a shot into Ciudad Juarez, then that's the kind of content you can expect on match days, but you'll find the memes otherwise and all kinds of different USL stuff on our Twitter at Seriously Loco. And then you can follow us on Instagram at Seriously_Loco because someone else took Seriously Loco already. And then if you enjoyed the podcast, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play. And hopefully you feel like subscribing. And if you just can't get enough and you want even more Seriously Loco, you can find us on patreon.com/Seriously Loco. And you can subscribe and get even more content from us, articles and other stuff, and perks and whatnot. And you can, check us out over there. So anyways, until next time, which will be probably later this week, stay loco.